Most people believe low sexual desire is a body problem, a hormonal deficit, a stress response, something that can be fixed with supplements, better sleep, or a more attentive partner. That belief keeps you comfortable, and it keeps you blind. Jung would have recognized what modern culture refuses to name. That desire is not a biological toggle, it is a psychic current, and when it vanishes, something far deeper than your body has shut down. What has actually collapsed is your relationship to your own vitality, the raw, undomesticated force that Jung called libido, which he never reduced to sexuality alone. He understood it as the total energy of the psyche, the voltage behind creativity, will, hunger, presence. When that energy withdraws from the sexual sphere, it has not disappeared. It has been rerouted, repressed, conscripted into performances you did not consciously agree to. You are not broken, you are occupied. The energy that would move toward desire is maintaining a persona, holding together an identity built for approval, for safety, for the careful management of how others experience you. That is not a medical condition, that is a spiritual crisis wearing a clinical mask. Jung observed that the psyche compensates relentlessly. When conscious life becomes too narrow, too controlled, too divorced from instinct, the unconscious begins to pull energy downward, inward, away from the places where you have been performing most aggressively. Desire does not leave because something is wrong with you. It leaves because something is wrong with the life you have constructed around you. And rather than dismantling the construction, most people medicate the messenger. The body is not failing, it is refusing. The person this finds, there is a specific person this dynamic targets, and she rarely looks like someone in crisis. She is competent, organized, emotionally fluent in everyone else's language but her own. She has spent years becoming indispensable, at work, in relationships, inside family systems that learned early they could deposit their dysfunction into her steadiness and walk away lighter. And that adaptation has cost her something she cannot name but feels every night when the lights go off and her body says nothing, no warmth, no pull, no stirring. Just a flat, quiet absence where hunger used to live. Jung would have recognized her immediately, not as someone lacking desire, but as someone whose desire has been buried beneath the weight of an overdeveloped persona. The mask she wears is not a lie, it is a survival structure. But survival structures do not generate desire, they generate endurance. And endurance over time begins to feel like death wearing patience as a disguise. The people closest to her do not understand what has shifted. They experience her withdrawal as rejection, her fatigue as disinterest, her silence as coldness. What they cannot see is that she has been pouring psychic energy into maintaining their comfort for so long that nothing remains to direct inward, toward her own body, her own appetite, her own unscripted want. This is the woman who gives everything and then is told she is not giving enough, because the one thing she has stopped giving is access to her own aliveness. That aliveness did not die. It went underground, following the only path available when every surface channel was already claimed. The body always tells the truth the persona cannot afford to speak. The withdrawal of the sacred. Jung never treated sexuality as merely physical. He understood it as one of the psyche's primary languages, where the conscious and unconscious negotiate, where the animal body and the symbolic mind meet without mediation. When that language goes silent, it is not a mechanical failure, it is a severance. Something sacred has been withdrawn, and the withdrawal is purposeful. The unconscious does not make errors of this magnitude by accident. It removes desire when desire has been reduced to transaction, when intimacy has become another performance, when the body is expected to show up on command for someone else's reassurance while your own interior life remains unvisited, unasked about. You stopped wanting not because you are deficient, but because your psyche has placed a moratorium on giving away what has never been returned. This is compensation at its most precise. Jung described the shadow as everything the conscious personality refuses to acknowledge. And in this territory, the shadow holds something unexpected. Not your darkness, but your hunger, your genuine, unperformed, inconvenient desire. The kind that does not care about timing or whether your partner's feelings will be accommodated. That desire lives in the shadow because you were taught it was dangerous, too much, too selfish, too animal. So you exiled it, and now its absence is being diagnosed as dysfunction when it is actually protest. The psyche will not continue investing energy in a domain where it is consistently mishandled. It will not keep sending desire into a relational field that treats it as obligation rather than revelation. The disappearance of want is not your body betraying you, it is your body drawing a boundary your conscious mind was too accommodating to draw, the cost of unlived life. Jung wrote that the most terrifying thing is to accept yourself completely. He did not mean your virtues, He meant the parts of you that do not fit the life you have agreed to live. The unlived life, the desires unexpressed, the boundaries never drawn, the creative impulses buried under obligation, does not simply vanish. It ferments, it grows dense, and eventually it begins to sabotage the very systems you sacrificed it to protect. Low desire is one of its preferred instruments, not because the unlived life is vengeful, but because it is honest. Your psyche cannot sustain arousal inside a life that does not arouse you. That sentence should disturb you, because the implication is that the problem is not your libido. The problem is your life, the architecture of your days, the relationships you maintain out of guilt rather than genuine pull, the roles you inhabit because they were assigned, not chosen. Jung called individuation the process of becoming who you were before the world told you who to be. And individuation in this context means confronting the possibility that your desire did not malfunction. It accurately assessed its environment and refused to participate. That refusal is not pathology, it is intelligence. The body knows what the mind will not admit, that you have been living someone else's version of your life, and the only protest available to a silenced psyche is to go quiet in the one place you cannot ignore. You have not lost your desire. You have lost contact with the self that generates it. No supplement, no technique, no external adjustment will restore what can only be reclaimed through the merciless act of telling yourself the truth. The path back to desire is not through the body, it is through the psyche. Jung would not have prescribed arousal techniques or romantic gestures. He would have asked what you are not saying, what you are not living, what part of you has been so thoroughly domesticated that your own instincts no longer recognize you as worth moving toward. The return begins with an uncomfortable admission that you have participated in your own disappearance, not because you are weak, but because the world rewards women who vanish into usefulness. You were applauded for your selflessness while your self was being consumed. Integration, not optimization, is what heals this. Jung's concept of making the unconscious conscious is not a gentle undertaking. It means sitting with the parts of yourself that your persona finds unacceptable. The anger you swallowed, the boundaries you should have held, the moments you betrayed your own instinct to keep peace in someone else's emotional economy. Desire returns when those exiled fragments are allowed back into the room. Not managed, not spiritualized, allowed. The woman who reclaims her shadow does not simply become more sexual, she becomes more alive. And aliveness is not comfortable, it has edges. It makes demands, it refuses to perform. It may disturb the people who loved the version of you that required nothing. That disturbance is not a side effect. It is evidence that something real has begun to move again. Jung understood that wholeness is not serenity. It is the full weight of a life claimed without apology, including the parts that make others uneasy. Your desire was never the problem. Your obedience was.